Welcome back to my channel, guys. I'm Nomadic Timbo, and today I'm going to talk to you about my work and holiday visa experience in Canada. So let's just get right into it. Let me start off by saying that I cannot recommend this country enough, whether you're visiting for holiday reasons, traveling purposes, or a work and holiday visa like I'm about to talk to you about. It is unbelievable, this country. Epic is not a strong enough word for it. You just gotta go and experience it for yourself because the scenery and pretty much everything else about the country is gonna blow your mind. So I'm gonna get into the visa now. So compared to Australia, with the application process, it was a little bit more complex, to be honest, because for starters, you had to apply to get the work and holiday visa very, very soon. I'm talking right at the very start of the year. I don't know what it's like for other countries, but I know for most European countries, they only let a certain amount of people in. So it's definitely worth if you're thinking about doing it, just, keep an eye on it. I'm not saying you need to do it on a daily basis, although that's not a bad idea either. But I definitely would recommend checking a couple of times a week or 3 times a week on, what the latest information is as to what you need to do. So, in the end, I thought to myself, well, it's probably a good idea to apply immediately as soon as it got to New Year's Day. So that's what I did. And despite that too, I still had to wait quite a while for my first application form to arrive by post. And when you complete the application, it is a little bit more complex compared to the Australian one. You do have to answer a little bit more questions and give them more details about yourself or about your purposes as to why you want to do a working holiday in Canada in the first place. But it's nothing that you can't do, seriously. It's just the length of the process that's a little bit draining, not so much the complexities. So yeah, the way it works is that you need to do two different, well, at least I did, need to do two different applications before I got accepted. But when I did get accepted, I was, yeah, just like a little kid, with excitement and stuff, because I was thinking, yeah, I've just got the feeling that this is going to be a really, really special trip. And like a couple of months earlier, I was talking to friends of mine who said that they'd been there, not for a working holiday visa, but just for traveling, and they were talking about the areas where I was thinking about going in the first place. So, in the end, and this is important as well, what I'm about to tell you, because you kind of have to pick the west side or the east side. It's very, very difficult to do both in one year. But what's really nice is that you don't have to do like 3 months of harvesting or fruit picking or farming or something like that to get a second year. So, what I would recommend is maybe do a bit of research and then just have a look at which side of the country is more appealing to you. And just in case you don't do a second year, I would pick the side that looks more favorable. And then if you do pick a second year, then you could obviously just reapply and then get a second year visa as a result then. I picked the west side because I'm more of an outdoors kind of person. I tend to prefer to be around like the coastlines and the mountains. Obviously Canada is such a huge country, so if you fly into Calgary like I did, then you have to cover a lot of ground to get to the coast. So yeah, that's what I did though. I flew into Calgary because I knew from the beginning I wanted to start off in the Rockies because Banff, or at least, yeah, the Banff area and the Rockies area were the parts that were recommended to me very, very highly before I started doing this. So landed in Calgary and took the bus to Banff. And when I was on my way to Banff, actually, I just had the feeling in my head that this was going to be pretty special, I have to say. And I was not wrong, because by the time I got to Banff, I thought to myself, man, I cannot believe a town, like a little town, could be surrounded by just epic mountains. It's almost like it was. You look at photographs and stuff and you think, well, no, that place cannot exist, surely. It just looks too picture perfect. And that's exactly what it's like in Banff. It really, really is. So, yeah, I just started going there. I started my visa in early September. So, yeah, to start with, I went into Banff. And I was very, very lucky, actually, because for the first month I was there, it was 25 degrees every day and not a drop of rain in sight. So at least if there was, it was only for like 1 or 2 days or something. So yeah, that was a good start. And luckily too, it was very quick for me to get work. I didn't really need to find work when I arrived because I saved more money there before going there compared to what I did when I was in Australia. So I did have even more breathing space at the time. But because it was kind of winter was approaching and it was coming into like a peak season and there were going to be a lot of people looking for seasonal jobs, I thought, you know what? Yeah, it probably would be a good idea if I look into, finding work. So I did like what I did in Australia. I was just knocking on doors by dropping off CVs or resumes, whatever you like to call them. And yeah, within about 4 or 5 days, I got a job working in a retail store for outdoors clothing and skiing equipment. So I started off there, and I think I worked there for about 6 weeks in total because even though I originally found a place where I probably would have stayed for the whole season, it was kind of like a hostel with your own room, but with like a shared kitchen. But it was really good for meeting people, and it was kind of on the edge of the town, so you weren't in the thick of the action all the time, so you'd have a bit of breathing space if you wanted to. Um, but then after 6 weeks, I moved on, and I'll get to that reason in a moment. But first of all, I just need to make a couple of shout outs. So if you're staying in Banff, whatever it is you're doing, I really recommend visiting places like Canmore. And Canmore is actually good for getting your paperwork sorted out and everything else that you need when it comes to bureaucracy, if you're doing a working holiday visa. I also recommend Moraine Lake. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. And also Lake Louise, which is my favorite hikes that I've been on so far. And it actually is famous for hosting the skiing World Cup, the Alpine Skiing World Cup. And you could see why when you look at it, even though there was technically no snow while I was there. I thought, well, yeah, I could see that they potentially would be incredible slopes. So yeah, I mean, and the thing is as well, both Moraine and Lake Louise, hence the names Moraine Lake and Lake Louise, have big lakes to them, and because the water comes from a glacier, you get this incredible turquoise color, where you have probably seen it on a lot of photographs, and you think to yourself, well, surely the water can't literally be that color when you see it in real life. Spoiler alert, it is. And it just blows your mind. It doesn't matter which angle you look at it from, it never gets old when you see that site. And of course, the Rockies that surround it it just makes it look absolutely breathtaking. So, yeah, guys, definitely spend time there. I strongly recommend it. But anyway, the reason why I left after 6 weeks was not because I wanted to get out of there. In fact, actually, would have been more than happy to do a full season, winter season in Banff. But I had an invitation from Chad. I hope you're watching, mate. Yeah, so my Canadian friend, he basically offered me a room in an apartment in Whistler. And I thought I put a bit of thought into it because I thought, well, I kind of like Banff already. Having said that, though, moving into apartment sounded very appealing because, yeah, you'd have a little bit more freedom compared to, well, the place I was staying before, which I mentioned was kind of like a hostel, but not at the same time. So I took up his offer and then took a bus from Banff to Whistler, which was a bloody long journey, I might add. I think it was about 17 and a half hours in the end, but, it was worth it, obviously. And yeah, and because it was an overnight bus, well, I missed quite a lot of the scenery on the way. But having said that, though, it got into the morning at the right time because I managed to see the breathtaking scenery from when you were leaving Vancouver on the way to Whistler. And so I got to Whistler. I was a little bit nervous, I have to say, because of course I was just starting to get settled into Banff, but I had to readjust again. And I knew that I had to try and find work very quickly, like I did with Banff, because of the fact that it was approaching the winter season, and I knew that a lot of other people would go for, seasonal jobs there, whether they were backpackers or just locals in general. So yeah, within like 2 or 3 days, I was walking around the town, again, knocking on doors, dropping off CVs, and then I entered one store, which was a kids' clothing store. Andrew, I hope you're watching too, mate. I'll show my gratitude later on. And yeah, I just started talking to a couple of staff members, including the manager, Andrew, who I was talking about just now. And this is one thing I'd recommend as well, guys, is if you're dropping off CVs, try and chat to your potential employers, because if they get to know you pretty well as a person, it really does increase your chances of getting a job there. So I put on a bit of the Welsh charm. Maybe that's what got me the job. I don't know, but yeah, no, it worked, and so yeah, I just found a job after 2 or 3 days. My first 2 or 3 days I was in Whistler. But what I didn't know then was that I didn't realize it was going to be. I think still to this day it probably is my favorite job that I've ever had in my life so far, because you ended up just talking to so many interesting people, and I found that. I mean, I've heard this is common with a lot of retail work, but 90% of the time you don't even talk about the products that the customers are looking for. It's all about building rapport, really. So we were talking about all kinds of different topics, and then as soon as you build their trust, then obviously that increases the chances of making the sale. But another thing I liked about this job too was that it was not commission based, and that obviously helps too. So I felt very, very lucky, and as I mentioned, it was a wonderful working atmosphere there. Very, very well, pretty chilled. I mean, it did get very, very busy at times for obvious reasons because Christmas is approaching. But it always felt like a really great atmosphere. And yeah, if you guys are interested, the name of the store is Fun for Kids. So I really recommend it if you tried to do a working holiday visa in Canada. And once again, thanks a lot, Andrew. You were an awesome manager, mate. So yeah, I spent 6 months in Whistler. I bought the ski pass as well for 10 days. I wanted to go more than that, but it was $850, so it was a lot of money. And I think if you wanted a full season pass, I think it was more than 2,000 Canadian dollars. This is where Banff has the upper hand over Whistler, is the fact that you can pay the same amount of money, but for 3 mountains compared to just like Whistler in total. Having said that, though, well, you know, Whistler did host the Winter Olympics, and for good reason, I might add. So yeah, I made the most out of my ski season. I have to admit, though, the first time I went up, I was kind of naive, because even though it had been more than a decade since I skied last, I went up there with my mate Chad, who I mentioned earlier on, and he's a really, really damn good snowboarder too. So he took me on, because you have green runs, you have blue runs, and you have black runs. Green is like, you know, more beginner level, blue intermediate, and black advanced. I'm pretty sure it was a mixture of blue and black. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, Chad, if you're watching this. And yeah, that was pretty scary, particularly given the fact it was my first time skiing for the first time in more than a decade. And I was going so damn fast that I was thinking, man, I'm going to have to go down here. Otherwise, I'm going to go too fast. And then if I do go down, I'm going to break something or whatever. Having said that, though, it was only that first session really where I was struggling to get the hang of getting the technique right again. But then from the second session onwards, fine, no problem. And I ended up having a lot of fun, because Whistler Mountain is awesome, guys. I mean, it didn't host the Winter Olympics for no reason, as I mentioned earlier. So when we were coming out of winter season, we were going into spring. And because I'm an animal lover, I was obviously curious to know where I would need to go to see black bears. So I asked one of my colleagues, and he said, "Oh, just go to the golf course." I was like, "Really? Just the golf course?" And he said, "Yeah, that's all you have to do." So, of course, needless to say, I checked out the golf course, and yeah, he was right. I saw like 3 or 4 bears, I think, or something, in just the first evening I was there, and I thought, wow. Having said that, I only saw them from a distance, so I thought to myself, I'll go again to see if I can get a closer look at them. You probably know where this is going, right? I kind of got a little bit more than I bargained for, because after walking for about 30 minutes or something, I didn't see anything. And then I thought, oh, okay, I'll just come back where I came from, because I was walking away from the golf course. And then when as soon as I started walking back, sure enough, only about 20, 30 meters in front of me was this huge male black bear looking straight at me. And of course I backed away, because obviously you don't want to do anything stupid. But to be honest though, it didn't look as though he was really interested in me. I think, well, because bears are omnivores by nature, I think he was more keen on having berries than thankfully having Welsh steak. So yeah, I was lucky that. But no, awesome feeling though to see a bear up so close. But I mean, I wouldn't recommend doing it deliberately unless you really know what you're doing. But yeah, it was such a cool feeling. And yeah, that was the end of Whistler. And because it was coming out of the season and the hours were going to die down, so I thought it was time to move on. So I went to Vancouver for a couple of days, again with my mate, and I was lucky because I was taken to an NHL game to see the Vancouver Canucks play. And man, guys, because hockey is religion in Canada, I cannot recommend enough going to see an NHL game if you can, because the atmosphere is electrifying and it feels like the action it goes on at double the speed compared to watching it on the TV. It's awesome, it really is. So yeah, just a couple of days in Vancouver because I'm not really a city person, so it wasn't my priority to stay there for that long. So I went to Vancouver Island by catching the ferry from Vancouver to the island. And this region is one of my favorite I've ever experienced on this planet so far. If you guys like animals, 10 out of 10. No more I need to say. I'll tell you why in a moment, but let me start off by saying that the scenery there is just... It feels otherworldly like. You never see anything like it around the world, or even on mainland Canada for that matter, because the trees and the vegetation there are unique to that island. And I can remember me and my German friends, we were walking through the forest there, and all of us were just looking at each other like this. We were speechless because it felt like something out of a fantasy movie where, you know, it kind of reminded me of movies like Pan's Labyrinth or The Labyrinth and stuff like that. And you just had it in your mind that like a mythological creature could step out of the trees at any moment and surprise you or scare you, whichever one it is you're talking about. So yeah, the scenery and the forests are beautiful, and the beaches as well because it's at the coast. So yeah, so I went to Tofino. This is where this area was, I might add. I went to Tofino, which is like a small surf town slash fishing town, and I tried a bit of surfing there. I was only a beginner at the time, which is probably a good thing in a way because it meant that I was close to shore. And I saw a YouTube video before where they showed orcas chasing sea lions along this area. So I thought, yeah, probably a good idea that I didn't go out further away from shore. But man, the water was so cold. And I'm not really a big fan of surfing in cold water, which is why I don't do that much of it here in Wales compared to when I travel warm countries. But yeah, there is good surf there, though. I mean, it does have a reputation, and for good reason. It's just that you have to like the cold a little bit, or are willing to surf in very cold water. And I mentioned wildlife. You see so many different animals there, guys, and it's just ridiculous how casually you see them. Like for example, you see bald eagles every day, and they just fly around like you see seagulls or something at a coastal town in Europe. You also see grey whales swimming past. I mean, looking out to the hostel I was staying in Tofino, there was like one evening there would be a sea otter swimming past, then the next evening it would be a sea lion, then the next evening it would be a grey whale. It was ridiculous. It was just, you couldn't believe that you could see such amazing wildlife just by looking out of the window where you were staying or living at the time. Awesome. And the other great thing as well is, well, first of all, and again, this is another good thing about Canada when you go at the right time of the year. So easy to pick up a seasonal job, although it's a little bit of a funny story because, again, dropped off CVs, and I dropped one off at this cafe. I can't remember the name, unfortunately. But, again, I tried to build rapport with the owners, and this really nice lady, she had a really unique kind of accent, and I thought, oh, where's she from? So I just asked her about herself, and then she told me she was from Sweden. And then I thought, well, I speak a little bit of Swedish, so maybe I should try speaking it to her. And maybe that can improve my chances of, well, getting that job. And sure enough, it did, because I literally started work 30 minutes after I spoke Swedish to her. So, yeah, I just worked at an ice cream shop while I was in Tofino. which was good fun, and there was like electric scooter hire as well. So yeah, never done a job like that before, but it's always good to have new experiences, right? But this is the beauty of living in Tofino or working in Tofino. If you have proof that you work there and live there, like it could be a paycheck, for example, all you have to do is take that to a place where you can kayak or a place where you can do whale watching, and you could do it for free. I'm not even making this up, guys. It literally is for free, which is amazing. And you can also, I think you get a big discount for going on a seaplane as well. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think it is kind of true. So yeah, another very, very special place, and it's awesome just to explore Vancouver Island in general as well, because the island as a whole has a lot to offer. Because Victoria, the capital city of the island, it's very, very nice, and it's not too big either, so it's not in your face, and so it's got a nice laid back kind of feel to it, despite being a city. And yeah, guys, that's it, really. That was, I mean, unfortunately, I had to cut it short. Well, I say cut it short. I was still in the country for 9 months or 10 months or something like that. But the problem was is that even though it was easy to find a job in Tofino, I got there in mid-April, I think. And even though I thought it was early enough, it actually wasn't. So here's a little tip for you. If you're going to go and try and do like a spring, summer season in Tofino, guys, make sure you go probably in early March, I would say, because you get a bit of a head start when it comes to finding an apartment to live in then, which is very, very important. Because finding a job is okay, but you do need that extra bit of time to find a place to live. But because I couldn't find a place to live, I couldn't afford staying in a hostel the whole time because I didn't have enough hours for that particular moment, because we hadn't really properly got into the season yet. So I had to end my working holiday visa in Canada there. So I took the ferry from Victoria to Seattle and then flew to San Diego, and then just did a Californian trip after that. And there you have it, guys. That was my working holiday visa experience in Canada. As I mentioned before, it's an absolute gem of a country. Whatever it is you're doing there, you're going to get a wonderful experience. But as I mentioned, pick one side or the other. If you're more interested in doing Montreal and Toronto, or just Ontario and Quebec, or like Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, pick the east side. But if you're more interested in doing the Rockies in the Alberta region, or if you want to do British Columbia, pick west. Because unfortunately, domestic flights in Canada are very expensive. In fact, it's actually even more. In fact, it's actually cheaper to fly to Europe sometimes from Canada than it is domestically. So I'd recommend doing that. But as a whole, though, guys, it's a very, very special country, and it's just glorious. It really, really is. So go for it when you get the opportunity. And there you have it, guys. I'll end the video here. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope it's been helpful for you if you're thinking about going to Canada for for traveling purposes, or visa purposes, working visa purposes. And yeah, just let me know if it has, and I'll see you all again soon.